Agents, have you ever had that client, that buyer who just didn't listen to what you were trying to teach them and they kept wanting to submit lowball offers? Or how about a seller who's unrealistic on price? We're going to talk about difficult clients today and how to handle them. Hey, everybody, Mike Ferrante here with One Mike Team. We're real estate agents serving the northern half of Ohio. So if you have a real estate need, literally from Columbus to Cleveland, Akron, Canton, Youngstown, Lorain, hit us up. Just go to 21mike.com, click that button at the top, schedule an appointment with me or someone on the team, and you can email me directly. It's mike at 21mike.com. So let's get to the matter at hand. This is especially for agents, but frankly, any business owners. Have you ever heard the saying, the customer is always right? Mike, you were a postmaster for a long time, and I would imagine that you had to smile and take a lot of stuff. Only I'm thinking of a different word that starts with S.
Absolutely, because there are so many customers that are so right. They knew exactly what they were talking about every time.
Right. So I think we can agree that, listen, we don't want fewer customers. We want more customers. We want more clients. We want to help people buy and sell real estate. But of course, there's going to come a time when you have clients who are unrealistic. And two big examples that I think of are buyers who don't understand the market. They're not listening to what you're trying to teach them about how competitive the market is, if it's still one of those competitive sellers markets in your area, and they just don't want to commit to buying a house. They say they want to, but they submit lowball offers. They submit terms that aren't going to be accepted. And the same goes for sellers. As the market shifts, we're going to see more and more sellers who cling to that price, that wish that oh well, my neighbor sold their house for 850,000. I should be able to get the same thing. Mr. or Mrs. Agent, why aren't you getting me that number? So let's talk about some ideas on how we can deal with these clients without alienating them. Look, at the end of the day, there may come a time where you fire a client, and we'll talk about how to do that too. So let's go buyers first. Okay, you've got a buyer and you're trying to educate them as to how to win. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple scripts, lines, dialogues that I use. Now, first, you have to do the education process. You have to put in the time, and sometimes maybe they even have to lose a property being outbid before they truly understand. So sometimes it's kind of like your kids. You have to let them fall down. You have to let them skin their knee before they really, really learn. It's kind of like the kid that touches the hot surface on the stove. I mean, look, we don't want them to do that, but believe me, they're not going to do it again. So sometimes we have to let them fall down, and then being able to say, see, I told you so in a nicer way isn't a bad thing. So I think we have to educate and then show them the proof. Show them the market time, do the research, show them the list of inventory and let them know, I'm working with some buyers right now here in my hometown of Twinsburg, and we're watching homes that are priced right go in multiple offers in the first 1 to 3 days on market. And we're just missing out on those, frankly, because we're not getting there quick enough. And then there's homes that are lingering. Those are the types of homes that maybe we can submit offers that are a little lower. But if they just continue and say, look, I don't care, I just want to wear out your DocuSign account, submitting offers that aren't going to get accepted, it's time for a hard conversation. And some of these things that I'm going to throw out there is things that you can say, please internalize them, make them your own, because this isn't everybody's style. But I have to tell you that there have been times when I've literally looked at a client, and I'll use Mike here as the example, and I'll say, Mike, I thought you wanted to buy a house. And they just look at me in shock. You can kind of imagine the way they might look at you. Well, of course I do. What do you think I've been doing all this time? And, we have to go down that path of, well, gee, we're making a lot of offers that aren't getting accepted. And we know they're not getting accepted. I've told you they're not going to get accepted. So I'm starting to get the sense that maybe you're not a serious buyer, and challenge them a little bit. Okay. I'm not saying punch them in the nose, but challenge them a little bit, get back to their motivation. And I think asking a question like, hey, I thought you wanted to buy a house is going to make them revisit that conversation. Well, Mike, you've been wanting to downsize. You have grandkids in Florida that you want to get to. Uh, you have that boat that you've been trying to put in the water, in your second home of Florida or on Lake Norman in North Carolina, and remind them of why they became a buyer in the first place and have that tough conversation. Now, I'm going to give you a little tougher line that I've actually used with investors because they tend to be a little more analytical and less emotional. And I have literally said this to investors. I'll tell them at a certain point, they have to push me pretty hard, but I will tell them at a certain point, look, I don't need practice writing offers. You guys, my teammates that are on the call here, have heard me say this before. I don't need practice writing offers. And they kind of look at me shocked and say, well, what do you mean? And I go through the same process. Look, I've written a lot of offers for you. I've told you what was going to be the outcome. I was right. And maybe it's time for you to really examine your strategy, your approach, and how it doesn't line up with mine. Now I'm going to take it to the next extreme. And, in the opener here, I talked about possibly firing a client. There's something you can say, and you guys, when it's time. You know when it's time to say this, and you have to put it out there when the time is right and say these words. Scott, maybe we're not a good fit to work together. And that's a real eye opener. And you're going to get one of two responses, right? Scott's either going to say, yeah, Mike, you know what? You're a jerk and I don't want to work with you. And I say, great, let's cancel our buyer's agency agreement. Or Scott's going to realize that I'm doing a great job for him, that everything I've told him has come to pass, and that he doesn't want to lose me as an agent. But agents, you have to have the gumption, you have to have the confidence to be able to say no to that client and walk away from them. Now, look, I know not everybody has enough clients and, transactions are down, but do you really want to spend time with a client who's not going to transact? Brian Buffini has a great line in the training I did with him. He says, look, this is going to sound simplistic, but a buyer is someone who buys. Sounds kind of dumb, right? But that is it. These folks that are wasting your time, they're not buyers. And maybe they will eventually. I have a teammate, David. He's not on today, but David and I fired a client a long time ago. They had unrealistic demands on our time. They wanted us to just do some things that weren't realistic. Well, we want to see houses the same day. And we tried to explain, look, occupied homes are not usually available the same day. We will try, but they're not available same day. And this was in a buyer's market when the average market time was in the 60s or 70s. So it wasn't as urgent to get there quickly. And we'd say, look, let's set the expectation that you will see homes the following day. You'll tell us today, we'll get you in tomorrow. Sounds pretty good, right? They were not happy with that. And at a certain point, we said, look, we're not a good fit to work together. Well, David obsessed over this and watched and watched and watched the county records until these folks transacted. And about 12 months later, David called me up and said, hey, Mike, those guys bought. We missed out on a X $100,000 sale. And I said, good. I said, good. 12 months of misery. Would that have been worth it, David? And he wasn't sure. He kind of shrugged his shoulders at the time because he wasn't really busy and said, well, yeah, probably not. So I get it, guys. Look, it's hard to fire a client, but at a certain point, you've got to, like the old saying, stop spending good money after bad. So let's change gears. Let's talk about sellers. We're in a shifting market. And I know a lot of agents out there who haven't been licensed. Scott, you know this. I mean, we've seen up and down markets. We've gone through times when we would sign 6 to 12 month listing agreements, right? But, the last 5 years, we haven't needed that. It's going to start to happen. We're going to have listings that linger for 30, 60, 90 days. And sellers are going to need to adjust their price. They're going to have started too high because they're remembering what has happened. Mike, you had these listings, where people wanted to start too high. And these are very difficult conversations to have. Hey, the writing's on the wall. The market has spoken, right? I'm seeing posts, Chris Smith, that brilliant author. You guys should follow him. Look up Chris Smith. I know it's a pretty generic name, but look up Chris Smith Real Estate. He was one of the founders of Curator, and he does a lot of great content, and he puts out some brutally honest posts. Follow Chris and Some of the stuff he's saying is, look, the market has spoken, the market research is in, and the sellers or the buyers have spoken and said, your price is too high. It's time to adjust. And we have to have these very hard conversations with our sellers. Now, like we always talk about, and I know Mike, when he makes his outbound calls prospecting with people, he says, hey, well, when your agent did their weekly update, did they mention A, B, and C? Did they mention all the activities that they were doing? And did they mention what the data says? How many views, how many saves on the different websites, how many showings, and what the feedback was? And are you getting feedback? When you got feedback from your agent, I'm talking expired listings now, what did they say? And guys, you'll be shocked. I mean, Mike, I know you're going to nod and smile when I say this, but how many people say, well, I don't know, I didn't get a weekly update, or I didn't get feedback? What? How can we not get feedback on showing? So, guys, you got to be armed with that data. You have to proactively go out there and try to get the feedback, measure the data, and on a weekly minimum basis, give your sellers that feedback. So when it comes time for you to start talking about a price reduction, they don't feel blindsided. Because frankly, 18 years of doing this, I can tell you the number one thing that sellers feel when you ask them or tell them it's time to reduce their price, they feel betrayed. And the only way you can stop them from feeling that way or minimize that feeling is by proving to them that you've done the work, that you've turned over every stone, that you've exerted the maximum effort. Because if you haven't, what do? They point at you and they say, you didn't do a good enough job. You didn't have enough open houses. You didn't market the properly correctly. And so the only way to show them that you have is to tell them what you did, tell them the results, get the feedback, give it to them, analyze it, and prepare them for what's coming. So, guys, I'm never asking for a price reduction the first time I give feedback, but I paint the picture. I say, here's what happened this week. If this happens next week, yay. If we get an offer next week, if we get 5 more showings, if we get 2 people who come back for second showings, that's all good. Maybe no changes are needed. But that said, if we get crickets, if there's no showings next week or none of these people come back, we have to start looking at our price at some point. And if you prepare them, literally starting the first or second week, that conversation goes a lot better. So that's my best advice for you guys on how to prepare sellers for the price reductions. And then you have to ask for it, or I don't want to say demand because that sounds a little harsh, but look, we're the experts. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen agents handle things where they're putting the client in charge of the expertise. Mike, you and I talk about this all the time. You don't go to the surgeon and say, well, you know what? I think you should cut me open here and do I looked it up on Google and it should be this procedure and do it this way. The surgeon is the expert, hopefully. Hey, ask questions of your surgeon, but they're the expert. So why should it be any different for us? We know what we're doing. Maintain that position of authority. That's the word I was looking for. Authority. Confidence demands authority. So don't be wishy-washy about it. You say, look, I've done the homework. Here are the numbers. The numbers don't lie. This is what we need to do. Okay? And ask the question that way. Okay. Would you like to do it this week or next week? That's the choice close that we talk about sometimes. Not when would you like to adjust the price? Look, the writing's on the wall. We're at 15 days on market with no offers, and we haven't had a showing for 7 days. It's time to reduce the price. Do you want to do it today, or would you rather wait until Friday in time for the weekend, and I'll do another open house for you at the new price this weekend? I like that too because you're giving them something. You're asking for them to give you something, the price adjustment, offer something in return. Hey, at this new price, let me do another open house for you. You guys like these scripts? Good stuff.
That's awesome. To your point there, I just used that same script yesterday, that on a price reduction, and it's actually for my client who has a business is having their grand opening this weekend. I said this would be the perfect time for me to set up my canopy and promote your house at your business with a reduced price, and they loved it. So that's your, speaking to your, I'm giving something while they're giving me something here. So great analogy.
Yeah, I love it. So anyone else who wants to chime in, like I said, I'm flying solo today. I figured I'd open it up to questions. If you want to drop something in the chat or just unmute and chime in, go ahead, Scott. Lay it on us. Unmute and tell us what you got. Meantime, with sellers, you can offer to fire sellers too. I know so many of us take listings and we worry, oh, I don't want to lose that listing, but there may be a time when you know that your name is being tarnished, your sign is collecting dust figuratively, and it might be time to say to the seller, look, I think maybe we're not a good fit to work together. I'm going to suggest that I withdraw your listing and let someone
Uh,
else figure it out. Go ahead, Scott.
well, couple of things. One is uh, you really hit the nail on the head when you mentioned that when the house isn't getting shown, they're blaming us for not enough marketing, not enough open house. We in our training in our office, one of the things we have is something that we go over with a new licensee. And every once in a while, we review it in a meeting with all of our people. It's called the 12 dangers of an overpriced listing. And it's old, but it's still right on target. Nothing has changed. And, uh, you know, you, uh, listings is the name of the game. Listing agents per hour make a lot more money than agents that work just with buyers. Good listing agents. Uh, but nothing is worse. Well, I'll put it this way: worse than having no listings at all is having some that are overpriced.
Yep.
Because you're going to be getting bombarded with complaints that take your time, wanting to cancel when it's not time to cancel yet, and all that kind of stuff. Okay, but the other point is that we talk about. Not necessarily on your Zoom call, but some of it, but just it's all over the place. We get so bombarded with ways to market properties. We get so many emails about this and that. You know what? The the best marketing means nothing. Marketing means nothing more than not having this tiny of a market, but this big of a market. Having more people, the maximum number of people attracted to want to look at your house, or agents wanting to show your house. That's really what it all is. When you get down to it, that's really what it is. And I tell my people all the time, the best marketing is not all this gimmicky stuff, or all even not gimmicky, but just stuff that may be good, and all that's fine. But the most effective marketing is getting it priced right. You're going to have the widest market, and that's what marketing really means. All that other stuff that we get bombarded with in every way under the sun, some of it's good, some of it's not. But uh, uh, you know, uh, when it gets down to it, pricing has always been the number one most important thing in having the widest market.
Yeah,
You
I
can
agree
have
100%, Scott.
you can have a an overpriced listing, and you can have the Goodyear blimp flying over that house for a week, saying, this house is for sale, and it's not going to sell.
Right. Yeah, I jokingly say with sellers, hey, I could take billboards out saying, check out 123 Main Street, and if the price isn't right, it's still not going to sell. So I had two thoughts on that. First off, here's my advice for agents. Number one, have a written marketing plan and show the seller what you're going to do. And then number two is do it. Okay. And the marketing plan should be a trickle. It shouldn't all be done and then, okay, I do nothing, because you better be able to answer the question when the seller asks you, what do you do to market my property? Show them the plan. But also, if I'm a seller, Scott, and the only pushback I would give you on some of the bells and whistles like video and is that if I'm a member of the public and I'm interviewing a listing agent, I'm going to ask this question. So my advice, agents, be able to answer the following question. Besides what happens automatically, what else do you do to market my property?
Yeah,
So I'm going to wrap up with this thought, and it's something I use on listing presentations. I use it in training classes. There's the old 3 Ps of selling homes. There's put up the sign, place it in the MLS, and then pray for the phone to ring. That's the old 3 Ps. That's what we used to do. But now we have all these amazing tools available to us. So I would argue now there's 4 Ps. There's prepare the home for sale. The marketing of the home starts even before it's on the market. Prepare the home for sale. Price it correctly. Number 3 is promote it. That's the marketing that we're talking about. And again, you should be able to answer the question, besides what happens automatically, what else do you do to promote my house? And number 4, I think this is what sets really fantastic agents apart from the rest of the pack. It's number 4, prospect. That's the 4th P. When I talk to a seller, I can look them in the eye and say, I will actively prospect for buyers for your home. Because I think many agents make the mistake of saying, look, I don't need to do that. I don't need to prospect because these listings will sell themselves. But Scott, to your point earlier, listings are a great source of business for real estate agents, but you're missing the boat if all you're doing is selling your listing. There's a whole concept called the listing flywheel, and you guys can look this up. It's straight out of someone from the Tom Ferry ecosystem. They talk about how each listing should spin off at least one more listing and at least 2 additional buyers. Your listing should be creating your pipeline or helping create your pipeline. So the 4 Ps,
absolutely.
guys, don't forget them. Any final comments here before we wrap up?
I may, if I may say one more thing, I'm not trying to take
We're
over your
listening. What are
set.
you saying?
But when you talk, just what you're talking about, a listing should spin off more listings. I tell you, I know it's a law, it's a old school and kind of a lost art, not an art, but lost practice. But I'll tell you, it does spin off more listings. That is, if you take just every time you take a listing, you take 21 just listed door hangers and go around to 21 neighbors around that listing. And, and then when it goes under contract, or if you want to wait till closing, that's fine. Go around 21, those 21 neighbors again with just sold door hangers. And don't just leave them on the door. Some people may be home, many won't be. But then you leave them on the door, but talk with the people if they're home. And then when you sell another company's listing, go to their sign is in the yard, the other company, but you go to 21 neighbors saying that you found the buyer.
Right.
And it has worked when I was selling, which has been a while, but I've got agents who still do this because I promote it a lot. It still works great and brings a lot of it brings spin-off business all the time.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, the concepts haven't changed, Scott. It's still the same thing. It's all about creating conversations. So
Yeah.
I'm going to put a bow on this unless we're all, did you have a comment?
Yeah, could you repeat that? The 4 silent P's.
The
I'm
4
sorry.
Ps. All right,
Yeah.
real quick, and then I got to wrap it up. So the old
Okay.
3 Ps is put a sign in the yard, place it in the MLS, and then pray for the phone to ring. And the new
Right.
4 Ps, it's prepare the home for sale, price it correctly, promote it, and then prospect for buyers. That's my 4 Ps, guys. So
Beautiful.
hopefully,
Thank you.
yeah, hopefully you find that helpful,
Yes.
Well,
Mike.
you forgot the 5th P. Forget Zillow, call Pillow.
Pillow. Yeah, if you're in Central Ohio, Mount Vernon, yeah, definitely call Pillow. All right, guys. So real quick, just teaser for next week. I've got a great training next week. I got Ian Jones is bringing an attorney on, and you guys know how much attorneys charge. This is going to be worth thousands of dollars. So he's going to talk about you just inherited a house. Now what? Okay, that's next week's section. The mistakes that we as agents make and that sellers make when inheriting a property. And believe me, there's a bunch of them. And then starting the first week of December, we're going to do business planning. So join us starting in December for it's either 4 or 5 weeks of business planning. Check out the 21 Mike Team Facebook page. That's where you can see them all laid out. We're going to go through a basic business plan. If you stick with us through the month of December, at the end of it, you'll have a basic business plan. Well, thanks for being here, everybody. Great seeing you all. And if you're watching this on YouTube, smash that subscribe button. Take care.
Thanks, Mike.